commissioner of the firearms program, knows diddly squat about firearms. Working with Trudeau for 2 to 3 years on this to ban guns, and she doesn't even understand guns. Clinton Jaws, guys. Clint, why do you keep on talking about Lucki? Because I have to talk about her. I was thinking when I was walking down here, man, you're sure beating up on her, aren't you? Yeah, I am, so. It's not my fault. There's 2 things I want to get across in this video, and I want to make it short. And this might be the last video I do about her. Right. There's 2 things that are interesting. One, I'm going to show you a clip. Lucki lies. She lies. Flat out lies. You've never seen it because you work. I don't work. This is my work. This is what I do. I've seen it. Why is that a big deal that she lied? Because you can't lie as a police officer. The most important thing you have as a police officer is credibility. If you lie or you're found or you're caught lying, especially in court, how can you ever testify again in court or anywhere else? She lies. The second point, I'm not going to tell you yet. You're going to watch the video, you're going to watch me, and you're going to find out what the second point is. I think it's a big deal. This lawyer, Scott, okay? He wants her to admit something. He wants her to admit that on April 28th, remember the famous meeting that they had on April 28th, right? I'm not going to go back into it, watch my older videos. But they have this famous meeting. Lucki has this famous meeting on April 28th. And cops that attended it said, wow, she called us, she said she was really disappointed in us. She was mad that we weren't going to release the details of Wortman's guns that he used to kill 22 people. She was mad that they weren't going to release that information to the media. Why was she so angry at that? The Trudeau government. Okay? And her. You're going to find out why. If you were to release that information, that would save Canadians. Trudeau was trying to make Canada safer by banning guns. Now, if you divulge this information to the public, then Trudeau can pass his gun legislation more easily, which he did a week later, banning guns. When Lucki testifies, she's making as though I wasn't mad at the meeting. I was mad about communication. I wasn't getting my communication properly or fast enough. That was just one small piece of the meeting that when I showed my displeasure in the group about the guns. They wouldn't give me the guns. I didn't really care. That was it. I was done with it. I didn't interfere. I wasn't trying to interfere within an investigation. I didn't really even care. But the lawyer is trying to make her admit that she really cared that they wouldn't give her that information. And she did. She really did care. So if he can't get her to admit it, this is what he says. This is how he gets her to admit it without admitting it. This is how important the guns were to her. I'm just going to show a short clip that you've already seen, but I just want to refresh your memory before we get into it.
Then why in that meeting would you be stressing the reason why it was so important that information be released publicly, that the government wanted it released because it was tied to their pending gun legislation?
No, not at all. It was about all of the issues that we were having about communication.
Right.
That was but one of many examples.
One of many.
Many of the things were brought to light through our comms to their comms, but there was many issues with communications. Like I stated earlier in some of my testimony, in normal circumstances, I would get 2 to 3 situational reports a day. I wasn't getting that. We weren't getting the information that we needed. I was doing a lot of media, and it was very difficult, and I've never usually in the position.
See, she was just a bunch of little things, Clint. It was just a bunch of little things, okay? That's what I was really angry at. Right. Now, I want you to remember that. Okay? Let's fast forward.
To be fair, You were more intimately involved with that pending gun legislation than simply being aware that it was part of the minister's mandate, weren't you?
No.
No. Oh, you weren't. Yeah, you were. Watch.
There was a lot of briefings, but I usually wasn't the ones doing it. We have 2 or 3 experts that do it. The odd time I was briefing, but I'm not a gun expert by any means.
Yeah, under the Firearms Act, the RCMP Commissioner also serves as the Chief Executive of the Canadian Firearms Program. Isn't that right?
I'm the Commissioner of the Firearms Program,
Right.
yes.
She's the Commissioner of the Firearms Program. Did you guys know that? Do you even care? Why is that a big deal, Clint? I'll tell you why it's a big deal. Because Trudeau went on a podcast and said he's been working on this legislation for years. We've been working on it for years.
There's a sense that Canada responded to the shooting in Texas by suddenly turning around and banning guns. But lovely if it were true, but we've been working on this for 7 years.
Yeah. We? Who's we been working on it for years? We is Brenda Lucki, the Commissioner of the Firearms Program. Of course, the Commissioner of the Firearms Program is going to be working with Trudeau. That's who Trudeau's talking about. They've been working at it for years, apparently. She didn't have an invested interest in this. She wanted to put her stamp on Canada. I've made Canada safer by working to ban guns, putting a freeze on handguns. She wanted to put her stamp on this. She wasn't just trying to make Trudeau happy. She was upset because in that meeting, because they weren't helping her out. She's been working on this for years, but she wants you to believe, I didn't care about it. No, it was just one small thing. It was communication, guys. Just wasn't getting my news in a timely fashion. What kind of nut would come to a meeting and act like that? Be that angry? No, she was angry at one thing only. You weren't helping her out. Forget the Trudeau government. That's why she was disappointed, because you weren't helping her out. The person that's been working on this for years. Now, why is this important? You got to listen to this. She's the Commissioner of the Firearms Program. Sounds like a pretty big deal, right? She knows a lot about firearms then. She must. She was for the banning of guns. She's for it. So she must know what she's talking about. She must be educated. You don't work on something that you know nothing about, right? Watch.
Making you the most senior administrator with respect to the Firearms Act in Canada.
Oh, most senior.
Yes, but not the most senior subject matter expert on those, all things guns.
Right, and you would say that you had been working with the Liberal government for 2 to 3 years on gun legislation,
You know, I forgot he even said that part because I seen this a long time ago. So I don't even need that clip with Trudeau saying, we've been working on it for years.
that you had been working with the Liberal government for 2 to 3 years on gun legislation, providing them with information on different guns.
Many, like the RCMP, not me personally, this has been going on for 2-3 years at least. There are briefings that are given, but we have 2 or 3, like I said, subject matter experts. I very rarely brief on anything to do with the guns.
You understood enough to know that the centerpiece of that legislation was effectively banning certain makes and models of firearms.
It was a banning of firearms,
Right.
yes.
So certain firearms that Canadians would have otherwise legally been able to possess if they had the requisite licensing would now be on a list of prohibited firearms. I'm
not even that, I'm ashamed to say, I'm not even that intimately involved with firearms, even at that level. Like I said, there's so many aspects to firearms and lists and the categories and the classifications. I don't know that stuff.
She doesn't know that stuff, guys. Been working on it for years. I promise you. Doesn't know that stuff. It gets better.
Madam Registrar, if we could go to COM 00599637. An email from you, Commissioner Lucki, to on April 23rd, forwarding the firearms information on to, I believe, the Minister's Chief of Staff. There. So we see April 23rd, 2020 at 3:58 p.m. from Brenda Lucki. Zeta, that's the Minister's Chief of Staff?
Yes.
Right. And you're providing her with the information that you had received from H Division?
Yes.
Right. And you've listed out the various firearms that were seized from the perpetrator when he was killed?
Yes.
Do I understand correctly that at that time, what is this, the 23rd, when you're sending this information about the firearms that were involved, the RCMP was fully aware perpetrator did not have any sort of firearms license or certification, and for the most part had acquired these firearms illegally and out of country?
I believe at that point that we did know that he didn't have a license. It wasn't, without the license, I would say he's obtaining them illegally.
The working theory that I know the investigation hasn't been closed, but the working theory at the time was that he had smuggled illegal firearms in. He had acquired firearms illegally in the United States and Maine, had smuggled them across the border, and was in about 5 different ways illegally in possession of firearms.
Yeah, I didn't know the details that you're specifically. I don't believe I was given.
Well, they're right there in the email that you sent.
No, but it was this could have, or this would thus be unlawfully smuggled into Canada, those things?
I'll direct you down to the bottom where it says Glock 23, sourced to a gun shop in Maine. This would have been unlawfully smuggled into Canada. That's reasonably clear, isn't it? Right.
Like I said, that was information I received, yes.
And as the head of the firearms program in Canada, presumably you understand that without a PAL, either restricted or non-restricted, in any way that perpetrator is in possession of firearms, it's a criminal offense.
Yes.
And to the extent that he acquires ammunition is a criminal offense.
Yes.
Do I have to show you that again? She telling the truth there? No. It's a complete lie. And when I first saw it, I went, you're lying. You're guessing. Guessing is the same as lying. Because she doesn't know the answer. Now, if she's going to lie with such a basic question like that, what else is she lying about? Let's watch it again, and then you're going to see what she says after.
That he acquires ammunition is a criminal offense.
Yes.
And to the extent that any license holder knowingly assists him in acquiring the materials used as part of his...
I don't...
Yeah. Spit it out.
I have to say, I don't know those laws intimately.
So, look at her. Beet red, uncomfortable, realizes, I just said yes to a question I didn't understand. I just felt my body lie. That's what somebody looks like when they lie. Now she's trying to backtrack. She's thinking in her head, are you tricking me? I'm saying yes to your questions. Ooh, did I just say yes? I better come out and try to act honest now.
I know that there are obviously illegalities when you don't have the proper licensing. I know that. Whether the restricted, the prohibited, what people can and cannot do with a license, I don't intimately know those, but what you're saying, I'm trusting that it's true.
What's a big deal, Clint? So? It is a big deal. She was willing to lie because that was her first instinct was to lie. And that is a big deal as a police officer. And I didn't like it. If you don't know the answer, you just say, you know what, I don't know, right off the bat. You don't lie and then kind of tell the truth afterwards and blame it on him. You know, I don't know much about it. And isn't that amazing? Commissioner of the Firearms Program knows diddly squat about firearms. Working with Trudeau for 2 to 3 years on this to ban guns, and she doesn't even understand guns. Doesn't have a clue. Admits it. Shows it that she doesn't have a clue. but yet working hard to ban these guns from good people that want to own them. Unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And I'm not going to say liberal. I'm not going to say far left. These are the people running the country.
I don't want to say that, yes, in fact, because I...
Well, you already did.
The reason I'm asking
You already
is
lied.
that, you know, while it seems in these communications, particularly in the meeting you had on the 28th with H Division, the suggestion that it's obvious that, you know, why the government is looking for this information is tied to pending gun legislation. What I was hoping that you could help me with was, what is the connection? What is the connection between that legislation and what happened here in Nova Scotia, beyond the fact that firearms are involved?
I wouldn't do it justice to make that connection for you.
Because to the best of your understanding, that legislation wasn't in any way aimed at closing any loopholes or doing anything that would have in any way helped prevent the perpetrator from committing his crimes here, right?
I can't answer, like I said, I can't answer those questions.
You're not aware if any efforts were taken to beef up things like border security and address issues of smuggling firearms illegally over the border?
Sorry, what was the question?
You're not aware of anything in that proposed legislation at the time that would have addressed issues like illegal smuggling of firearms, things that would have prevented the perpetrator from bringing a Colt carbine.
You guys might not understand what he's talking about. What this lawyer is getting at is, Wortman would have killed these people anyways. Didn't matter how many restrictions on firearms in Canada there are, or a freeze on handguns. He got the guns, Wortman got the guns illegally, across the border. He didn't even have a firearms license. He didn't follow any Canadian rule. Bad guys don't. So you can put all these restrictions in place in Canada, but the bad guys are still going to get the guns like Wortman did across the border. The people who you're punishing are good people with guns. When I was a police officer, I always thought, I don't want anybody having a gun. I think differently now. I think differently now. I think everybody should have a gun in their house.
You can't point to anything that would suggest that there's a logical connection between what happened here in Nova Scotia and those issues being addressed by that legislation, the legislation that was announced on May 1st, 2020.
No, I wouldn't. Sorry.
And you can appreciate that there are those that'd be concerned that the optics of that are that.
They are using this case, Wortman murdering people, as an excuse to push out this gun legislation, to ban guns in Canada. Which is gross. Let's slide this gun legislation through now that everybody's going to agree with, even though Wortman didn't acquire any guns in Canada. Maybe one that he didn't use. Got them from America. They used this case to push their agenda. And I hate using the word agenda.
And you can appreciate that there are those that'd be concerned that the optics of that are that the collective grief and pain of my clients and others.
He gets choked up here.
Was being exploited
for
the
Sorry.
Shut up.
To affect the crass political objectives of legislatures. You could see why that would be a very serious issue and one that we would be very interested in.
I could see that as being an issue, but it's not something that is at all, when you talk about that I could see the optics of that. Absolutely, but I couldn't see it. I can't make that connection for you.
Doi. Oh. What?
Sorry, Mr. Scott, it's 5:30. I'm presuming you're wrapping up.
Idiot. She's on the hot seat. Keep her on the hot seat. No. This is what he
Or
didn't
maybe
want.
you can tell us where you are in the.
I love his reaction to this.
I'm happy to keep going.
I'm sorry.
I'm happy to keep going if
Damn right.
the commissioners will hear me.
Sure. How much longer do you think you'll be?
What's it
Not
to you?
long.
Okay. Thank you.
What's it to you?
Madam Registrar, can we go to
Moron.
COM 0059637? Commissioner Lucki, do you see about 3 lines down in bold, you write, please do not disseminate further, do not share this information past the Prime Minister and the PM as is directly related to this active investigation. And that's on the 23rd of April, correct?
Yes.
Right.
I wanted this to be a 5-minute video. I didn't watch after this. She's making as though, wow. She all along she was making as though I didn't know they had an active investigation. The guy was dead. He was deceased. She didn't know that they had an active investigation. But on April 23rd, like what? 5 days before the meeting. Do not share. It is directly related to this active investigation. She knew all along. And she knew that if they released that information to the media, that would hurt their investigation. But she demanded it by going into that meeting and telling them how disappointed she is in them. Possibly you let the boys down. Really gave it to these members. You don't understand. This is going to make Canada safer. Now, is that interference, Clint? Is that political interference? Of course it is. Another RCMP member on the stand said, well, it was attempted. What does that mean? Attempted is the same as doing it. If I attempt to rob a store and it doesn't work out for me, I get arrested for robbery.
You understood that this was information tied to an active investigation, and while you obviously report up and keep those in government and the public safety minister apprised, you didn't want to compromise the integrity of the investigation by having that disseminated more widely, right?
That was why it was put there, yes.
Right. And I think with respect to the April 28th press conference and subsequent meeting you had with H Division, when you were interviewed by the Mass Causality Commission, the suggestion was as soon as Darren Campbell said to you, this is part of an active investigation, that's why I don't want to disclose it, your response was, that's it, I don't need it. I asked for it because the government wanted to know if it was coming up, but if you're telling me that this is for an active investigation, that's it. I'll report that back and we'll never ask for it again.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't connect it was kind of odd because I was thinking more about the deceased and the connection with the firearms to the deceased and the use of those firearms. I wasn't connecting it to auxiliary sort of investigations. And so that's the investigation that I was thinking of. I wasn't thinking of the smuggling. I was thinking more about connecting the guns to the perpetrator.
Right. In your interview with the Mass Causality Commission, what you said, and I'm at page 38, as soon as he said that, that was it. You know what? Don't need it. Don't need any information on the guns.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was a moot point then because, but I still think that now, the benefit of hindsight, I think things like the classification of guns there's certain information that may have been able to be shared that may not compromise. I'm saying that now. I wasn't thinking that then, but I was thinking.
And did you ever apologize to anybody at H Division for the fact that, as it turns out, they never said that they were going to release that information at the 28th? In fact, it was just a miscommunication that Ms. Tessier had.
And that was pointed out in the meeting on the 28th that at that point, I think it was Ms. Tessier who pointed out that she gave me the wrong information.
Then why didn't you take the time to say, listen, guys, I had it all wrong here. I thought you would agree that you were going to put this out and you had given me incorrect information, but I now realize that I'll take this up with Ms. Tessier later.
Because she was mad at them. That's why. When you're mad at somebody for not doing what you want them to do, you don't apologize.
That would have been a pretty reasonable response given the circumstances, and obviously Darren Campbell didn't do anything wrong. He was very clear about why he didn't release that information.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that, did you?
I could have, yes, I could
You could have, but that's
And
a
I
far
didn't.
away from you didn't.
No, and I didn't. No, you're absolutely right.
I appreciate your time, Commissioner. And my question.
Okay, that's it. That's it. I hope I hope we get a recording of that meeting. Oh, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Watching people lie and fib and dance. It's gross. Canada's safer now, though. Anyways, guys, subscribe. I don't even know if you're going to watch us. I gotta go. Bye-bye.
What's that?